and trade facilitations, logistics for their businesses and exports. Omijai, Grts.
We will be back with news from outside the Gambia after this break. Welcome back. Italy is to hold a day of mourning on Friday after at least 113 people drowned early Thursday when their boat sank off the island of Lampedusa. More than 150 people have been rescued so far, but many more are still unaccounted for. Reports say the vessel, which was carrying hundreds of migrants, caught fire and capsized about a kilometer from the coast. It is believed many on board are from Eritrea. We have more from the report. We have more about the report from DWTV.
Are still being brought ashore. The dead include men, women, and children. Survivors, rescuers, and residents of Lampedusa are in shock. So far, less than a third of those on board have made it onto dry land alive. Reports say some of the migrants lit a fire on the boat to attract attention.
The entire ship caught fire. Because of this, everybody pushed forward, capsizing the boat. Hundreds ended up in the sea.
It's the second report this week of migrants dying in the Mediterranean on their way to Italy. Legislators call on the Italian government, and especially the EU, to act.
Today's accident has no precedent in the history of migrant landings in our country. Our response must be strong. Europe has to change its migration policies, fight against human trafficking, and hold North African countries to account.
Lampedusa has long been overwhelmed by the influx of migrants. The Mediterranean island is often their first European port of call. 3,000 migrants have made it here so far this year. No one knows how many perished on the way.
13 people are known to have died in another plane crash in Nigeria after the plane caught fire shortly after takeoff from Lagos Murtala Mohammed Airport. In Greece, the leader of the far-right Golden Dawn Party has been jailed pending his trial on criminal charges. And police and protesters have clashed in the Mexican capital, injuring 50 people. The demonstrations are held annually to commemorate the death of 40 students killed in 1968 by the government. We have details of those reports in this roundup report.
At least 13 people have died in a plane crash in Nigeria. The aircraft caught fire shortly after taking off from the port city of Lagos. Reports say 20 people were on board. 6 people escaped with injuries, while 1 person remains unaccounted for. It's unclear what caused the crash. The leader of Greece's far-right Golden Dawn Party has been jailed pending trial on criminal charges. Nikolaos Mikaloliakos is accused of being a member of a criminal organization. Greek authorities started cracking down on Golden Dawn after the recent killing of a musician, allegedly by one of its supporters. In Mexico City, 50 people have been injured in clashes between protesters and the police. Officials say police intervened when masked demonstrators threw stones and damaged property in the Mexican capital. The protest is held annually to commemorate the massacre of at least 40 students in 1968. And radioactive water has again spilled into the ocean at Fukushima in Japan, the second such incident in as many months. The operator of the nuclear plant said at least 430 liters of contaminated water leaked from a storage tank.
One of the imprisoned members of the Russian punk band is protesting what she says are slaves-like conditions at the prison camp where she is being held. Nadezhda Tolokonikova has recently moved to the prison's medical ward on what her husband says is a 9-day hunger strike, but she ended that strike on Tuesday. She is serving a 2-year sentence for her part in an anti-government performance at a Russian Orthodox cathedral. CNN's Phil Black reports.
Of Moscow to get to the prison camps of Mordovia. Convicted criminals are said to fear this place. It is grim, decaying, often intimidating. Nadezhda Tolokonnikova was sent here a year ago for her part in this famous performance. The Pussy Riot punk prayer in Moscow's main cathedral, a protest song against President Vladimir Putin. Found guilty of hooliganism. The punishment was 2 years prison. Tolokonnikova has less than 6 months left on her sentence, but on September 23rd, she declared the conditions to be intolerable and began a hunger strike. So it's been more than a week since you've seen her?
Yeah, right now.
Tolokonnikova's husband said her condition deteriorated sharply and she was moved to a prison hospital facility.
Nadia, obviously, she's very weak now. She did start getting complications because basically it was her 9th day of the hunger strike.
She described life in the camp in an open letter. 16-hour working days, little sleep or food, violence and cruelty. This video was recorded by a human rights activist just 2 days into the hunger strike. Tolokonnikova says women in the prison are forbidden from maintaining personal hygiene. The scene here, Tolokonnikova's description of life on the other side of the barbed wire. It's all drawn comparisons to the gulags, the notoriously brutal prison camps of the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. But prison authorities here deny Tolokonnikova's allegations. They say she's lying. Svetlana Bakhmina believes every word because she says she's lived through it too. Bakhmina was convicted of embezzlement and served 3 years in a Mordovia prison camp. It's like torture, she says. The system between the administration and the convicts is not just based on subordination, but humiliation, fear, intimidation and physical force. Bakhmina says she also went on a hunger strike after the authorities said she could no longer phone her children. She says the physical pressure applied to make her quit was more difficult than the hunger. Maria Alyokhina, another convicted member of Pussy Riot, went on a hunger strike earlier this year, protesting conditions in a different remote prison camp. She drew attention and won concessions. Now Tolokonnikova hopes she has done the same. Phil Black, CNN, Mordovia, Russia.
We now take our second break. Welcome back. One of the biggest sporting events in the world is under the media glare these days. FIFA's executive committee is meeting in Zurich, Switzerland for crisis talk on the 2022 FIFA World Cup. It could be recalled that Qatar won the hosting rights 3 years ago, but there has been growing talk about the oppressive summer heat in the Asian country, with many saying it could pose a threat to the safety of the athletes. We have details in this report.
Global events don't get much bigger than football's World Cup. This promo video for Brazil 2014 gives you a feel for the excitement of an event watched by billions of people across the planet, earning billions of dollars for its organisers FIFA. Qatar! So the decision 3 years ago to pick a small Middle Eastern nation to host the 2022 tournament was certainly bold. And as the celebrations faded, calls grew to take the World Cup away from Qatar or move the dates because its summer weather is simply too hot.
I will always support that we have to play in winter. And it's not a big problem to play in January or in because we can postpone the end of the season in June instead of May, and we can stop one month to play the most important event in the world in the best period for the people, for the fans, for the journalists, for the player.
Qatar's potentially harmful summer heat was mentioned in FIFA's own evaluation.